Let's now take a look at an even further subdivision of the quarter note called a 16th note. Just like a whole note can be divided into two equal half notes, a half note into two equal quarter notes, and a quarter note into two equal eighth notes. An eighth note can be divided into two equal 16th notes. Now, if it takes two equal eighth notes to fill the same amount of time as one quarter note, and two 16th notes equals one eighth note, then we should know that it will take four equal 16th notes to fill one quarter note, or beat. There are 4 beats in a measure with a 4/4 time signature, and each beat can be divided into 4 equal 16th notes. That means that in one measure, there can be up to 16 equal 16th notes. We already know that in order to count eighth notes, the first eighth note, or the downbeat, is counted as the beat, 1, 2, 3, or 4. And the second eighth note, the upbeat, is counted by saying the word and. Being that 16th notes are a subdivision of the eighth note, the way you count the downbeat and the upbeat will remain the same. The remaining 16th notes will be counted by saying E and Ah. 1, E, and Ah. Let's listen to how it sounds when beats 1 through 4 are all divided into equal 16th notes. 1, E, and Ah, 2, E, and Ah, 3, E, and Ah, 4, E, and Ah. When counting rhythm in music, it is very important to feel the pulse of 4 equal 16th notes in every single beat, no matter what kind of note is in each beat. This is by far the easiest way to ensure that you stay within rhythm. In the following examples, there will be a click track playing the pulse of each 16th note and a piano performing the notes as they are written. This will enable you to hear the notes as they match with each 16th note pulse. Pay attention to the words on the bottom of this video in order to see how each beat should be counted. This here is a 16th rest. A 16th rest looks very familiar to an 8th rest, except that just like a 16th note, it has 2 flags instead of just 1. Wherever a single 16th rest is present, you will remain silent for 1/4 of a beat. Unfortunately, it is not always so easy to count 16th notes. Frequently, certain 16th notes within a beat will be omitted. Let's see what it would sound like if the very first 16th note within a given beat was actually a 16th rest. In this measure, beats 1 and 4 each contain a quarter note, and beat 2 contains 4 equal 16th notes. Measure 3 is broken down into 16th notes as well, with the very first 16th note omitted and replaced with a 16th rest. When counting beat 3, start by saying E on the subdivision of the downbeat, or what would be the second 16th note within the beat, like this. To get a better listen, let's divide all 4 beats into equal 16th notes, omitting the very first 16th note in each beat. Let's now see what it sounds like when we omit the second 16th note in any given beat. In this situation, the downbeat is played as an 8th note, and the upbeat is divided into 2 equal 16th notes, omitting the E of 1 E and Ah. Remember that an 8th note takes up the same amount of time as 2 16th notes. Whenever certain 16th notes are omitted, an 8th note may be used to fill its space. Altogether, it sounds like this. Do you see how the 8th note on the downbeat of each beat enables you to play through what would be the second 16th note in each beat? How about if we were to omit the third 16th note and? Omitting the third 16th note would mean that the second 16th note pulse will be played by an 8th note. Putting an 8th note in place of the second 16th note means that it would sustain through the end part of the beat. Finally, what if we omitted the last 16th note in each beat, or Ah, of 1 E and Ah? Doing so would mean that the third 16th note in each beat, the upbeat, would become an 8th note and sustain until the next downbeat. Before we wrap up, why don't we take a few seconds and put together all of the different combinations of 8th notes and 16th notes that we have learned in this video to see how they match up with each other. Now that you have an understanding of what 16th notes are and have seen a couple of different combinations, in the next video lesson, I will begin to talk about dots and ties and sustaining notes even further. But before you move on, don't forget to check out 5minutemozart.com for free helpful practice sheets and more in-depth explanations of everything discussed in this video.